Hello, P4790 or Cyrus here. I'm gonna be reviewing Gravity Rush for this video. As I was buying a PlayStation Vita on EB Games Power Sale, I had a choice between 4 games, which was Gravity Rush, Resistance Burning Skies, Unit 13, and Hot Shots Golf World. I decided to get Gravity Rush since it really seemed to be the most unique game out of the bunch. And after playing through the main story mode of the game, I would like to give my overall opinion on the game. Note that the footage I got from this video will be either video I got from the internet or still images, since the Vita doesn't really have any way for people to record their gameplay footage yet, well, outside of using a video camera to record the footage. Gravity Rush is an action-adventure game that was developed by Project Siren and published by Sony. It is available on the PlayStation Vita. Graphically, the game looks great. The game uses a unique style of cell shading, which really makes the game stand out from all the other video games that are using cell shading as well. It looks fantastic. The environments also look fantastic as well, with each of the districts that you traverse through being very unique from each other, which will make going through them a unique experience as you explore them for the first time. And the scope of the environments is also pretty impressive. Gravity Rush world is pretty big, and I was honestly surprised that the Vita can produce such a big world, with it being a handheld device and all. It's not the biggest world out on the market, well, game world, but it's still pretty big, which really gives a player a good amount of exploring to do when they're playing through the game. And I have to add that the exploration is tons of fun when you're using Cat's gravity powers, but I'll get to that when I get to the gameplay portion of this review. You also have the ability to go into the first person perspective, which is great, as it really gives you a chance to take a closer look at the different districts. Story wise, I found Gravity Rush to be fairly good. You play as Cat, a girl who lost her memory and finds that she's suddenly awake in the city of Harvestville. She then finds a black cat, which gives her the ability to control gravity, and so begins her journey to adapt to her new surroundings and her mastery of her newfound powers. Overall, I found the story interesting enough to play through, but there were several problems with it. Those problems are that some stuff isn't really explained in the story, well, mostly some of the characters' backstory. Though the ending of Gravity Rush does open it up to a sequel, so I'm hopeful that the sequel will explain all the unexplained stuff in the game. But I do have to add that I really like the comic style cutscenes in the game, since it really gives it a sort of episodic feel to it, which really makes me think I'm watching an anime as I was playing through the game. Character wise, I found a good amount of characters to have their own unique charm to them, especially Cat, with both how she adapts to her new surroundings and how she interacts with several characters in the game, such as her first meeting with Gabe, which was pretty funny to me. The soundtrack is also fantastic, and is pretty unique from other video game soundtracks, which really made it stand out to me. Voice acting is something I can't really judge, since the language the characters speak is a made-up language, like in Shadow of the Colossus or Ico. Overall, the game has great presentation, with its art style, characters, environments, and soundtrack, with its only downside being that some of the character backstory isn't really explained. First I get to the combat. It's fairly simple. On the ground you can do standard kicks with the square button, and then you swipe the screen to dodge, and that's basically it. It's simple but fun as well. But really, when Cat's in the air using gravity power, where it's really satisfying and tons of fun. First, explain the various gravity powers she has. You got her standard gravity kick, which you'll be using most of the time. Basically, you go into gravity mode, which is where you press R, then target enemy, then press square. It's simple, but it's very satisfying to do. Just to go and target enemy, use gravity kick, and see Cat gain momentum as she reaches her opponent, then gravity kick them to oblivion. Just very satisfying to me for some reason. And then you got stasis field, which you'll be able to lift up objects and throw stuff at enemies, which is surprisingly very useful compared to other games that has this ability. And then you get various special attacks as you progress the game, such as Micro Black Wave, Typhoon Kick, and Gravity Typhoon. And these have got their own uses and pretty unique from each other. And the controls are great as well, where you press R to go into gravity mode, press L to return gravity to normal, and then when you're in gravity mode, press R again where you want to set Cat's gravity field. And then you got square for special attacks, square for your standard kicks or gravity kick, then O for stasis field, and X to jump. Overall, the controls are great, and you also got the gyroscope of the Vita to work for you, and it works great, as it helps you target stuff. I mean, you can use the right analog stick as well to point at the general direction of the enemy, but you can also use the gyroscope to be more specific. So on the whole, the controls are great. Next I go to the upgrade system, which is pretty simple. You go to the map option, which by pressing select, and then you press the icon, I think almost to the bottom, the second bottom, just above the X icon. And then you collect gems throughout the game, and then when you get enough, you just press on which item you want to upgrade. And that's it, pretty simple. It's overall a very simple leveling system, but it does give you a good sense of progression, such as when you're upgrading your kicks, you get more continuous kicks in one combo chain. And each of the boss battles are pretty unique from each other, which will really mix up the combat at times where you're playing through the story. If there was one thing I wish the sequel would improve on, is that I wish for more options on the ground, since you really only have the standard kicks. With that, you got sliding kick, but you need a bit of practice for sliding kicks. I even haven't mastered it yet, but the overall combat is very fun and satisfying, though it's a bit simple at times. Next I get to the overall exploration and mission structure of the game. Exploration wise, it plays out like an open world sandbox type of game, so you can really pretty much explore anywhere as you unlock more districts of the city. And I have to say that exploring the city is tons of fun with Cat's gravity power, as it gives you a great amount of freedom to explore the city with. Also add in both how each city are pretty uniquely structured from each other, and how it gives you incentive to go around exploring in terms of collecting gems to upgrade your attacks. I have to say that I never found exploring around the various districts of Hermvale boring. It was fun. Even now, I'm just exploring around looking for new stuff. Now for the mission structure. For the main story mode, it's pretty much the same thing, with you basically only destroying enemies in a given area. But it does mix it up with it with a few stealth missions and other missions where you have to use Cat's stasis field to move an object or a person from one area to another. But overall, it's pretty much the same thing with you defeating enemies. But you are given an amount of variety in gameplay in terms of challenges you find throughout the city, such as time attack, gravity race, sliding race, which is kind of like gravity race, but you can only use your sliding technique, which is kind of tricky. And overall, the mission structure is pretty good in terms of how provide variety in the challenge missions, though it can get a bit samey when you're doing the main story missions. So overall, gameplay wise, Gravity Rush could have been like my favorite action-adventure sandbox type game in this generation, though there's one problem to it, is that there's not as much content in this game as compared to other action-adventure sandbox games such as Assassin's Creed or Infamous. Overall, Gravity Rush is a great game. It uses the Vita hardware very well. It has a very unique gameplay, and the combat is pretty fun. Exploration is great with Cat's gravity power, and the soundtrack is great visual style. Overall, it's a great game with a few issues, such as some unexplained stuff, like some character backstory doesn't really get explained, and the amount of content is a bit lacking compared to other action-adventure sandbox games, but it's a game I would really recommend people on the Vita get. I mean, that's not really much coming from a person who haven't played any other video game, but Gravity Rush really gave me a great first impression on the Vita, and I really look forward to more games like this on the Vita as well. I give this game an 8 out of 10. A very unique game that's an absolute blast to play through, but it has its shortcomings.